Okay, hi guys, look, I don't really know whether to open this video by saying welcome to another video on Atheism Plus or to kind of apologise for making another video on Atheism Plus. I've left it a couple of weeks. That's about as much as I can bear, I think. I've got so many things that I want to say. I'm going to try and limit the number of things that I say in this video so that it doesn't go on and on and on. I really want to cover two things mainly. I just want to go over the issue of the name problem one last time, and then I want to look at Atheism Plus as a movement, because there's a couple of real fucking head scratchers with regard to that I want to go through. Just before I do either of those two things, which is what's going to constitute this video, I did have an exchange last night on Free Thought blogs. I erroneously thought that perhaps PZ Myers' blog, given his reputation, given what he does for a living, may have been a little oasis there with a little, where you get a little bit more in the way of debate. Well, I don't really want to prejudice how you're going to view any of this. So what I want to do is I'll just put the link down there to the exchange I had. It stretches from about comment 353, I think is my first one. I bailed out. It was 4 o'clock in the morning, but to be honest, I don't think there was anything I could have said that wouldn't have been misinterpreted or misconstrued or deliberately turned around by about 385. So you're only looking at about 30 comments, plus about another 20 comments there telling everybody on YouTube why they're a total bunch of wankers. So there isn't a lot of comments to read, but I would advise you to read it. It really is quite interesting, and it just shows you how wrong I was about PZ Myers' blog. It's so interesting that PZ Myers gave Thunderfoot so much shit for the bunch of twats that he had following him, and not everybody who follows Thunderfoot's a twat, but he does have a certain number of those. He doesn't seem to do anything about keeping his own house in order, does he, PZ Myers? Anyway, I'll leave you to read that one. Let's go on with the bulk of the video, and the first thing, which is this thing about Atheism Plus and the name. So the issue of the name Atheism Plus is one that I've dealt with on video. It's one that I've debated with quite extensively with different people in different forums, and it's one that I've read other people debating. And the reply that comes back as often as not is along the lines that, well, if you object to one modifier to the word atheism, then surely you must be objecting to any modifier. So you'd object to, I think the example that's been given most often is to an atheist knitting society, that would be just as bad as Atheism Plus. I don't know whether the people that are making that argument are just stupid, whether they're being willfully misleading, or what exactly is going on there. But the very problem people have with the name Atheism Plus is that A, it's ambiguous, and B, it is downright misleading. I contend that the name Atheist Knitting Society is not misleading and it's not ambiguous. If I was to go into my local town and canvass people's opinions on what an Atheist Knitting Society is likely to refer to, I think most people would get it cock on, that what it referred to is a society of atheists who enjoy knitting. Perhaps they get together on a Saturday and a Sunday and knit, probably have a cup of coffee at the same time. I think they would get that one right. But what about if I then started asking people, what do you think Atheism Plus actually means? Do you think a single person would think, well, do you know what? That probably means atheism plus social justice issues, plus animal rights, plus railing against ableism and all these other different things. I don't think a single person, 16,000 people live in my hometown. I think the only person who get it right is me, because I just happen to be in the knowledge on this one. You know what I think most people would say? They'd say Atheism Plus. Some people just shrug their shoulders. Of those that provided a reply, I think most people would think, well, it's probably a name for ardent, strident atheists, people like Richard Dawkins or the late Christopher Hitchens. It's probably for people like that. Maybe it's a name for anti-theism. Perhaps some of the more clever people amongst them who know a little bit about some of the terminology might say Is it another name for strong atheism? I think a lot of people would have Atheism Plus down as another name for something that equates more or less just to atheism. Nobody would have this idea that it's Atheism Plus and the plus is all these social justice issues. I don't know how much plainer that can be. Nobody has a problem with modifiers. If they weren't called Atheism Plus, if they were called social justice atheists or progressive ethics atheists, I don't think anybody would have the problem with the name. Atheism Plus is ambiguous and it's misleading. That's the problem. Right, what I want to get on with now is this idea of Atheism Plus as a movement. So something that's been said to me a number of times by proponents of Atheism Plus is, why should we care what you think, Noel Plum? Why should we care about what anybody thinks who doesn't agree with us? I find this a real head scratcher on a personal level, really, because that's not the way that I've ever operated. If I put a video out and I get a number of views, I'm interested in what everybody thinks. I'm not only interested in what people think who agree with me. In fact, the people I'm most interested in are the people who disagree with me. That is where the debate lies. If you make a video, surely one thing you want to do, if you make an argument, if you're starting a movement and you're trying to fight on social justice issues, you can't convert the converted. The people that you need to convert are the people who have different views. So why on earth would you not be interested in people who have different views to your own? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Seems to me that one of the qualities of a movement is that it looks outwards because it wants to try and spread its message, and that involves engaging with people with different views. The kind of organisation that faces inwards is a cult. Cults aren't that interested in the views of people who aren't the cult. They have that kind of suffocating little enclave where they just tell each other exactly what each other already believes. Stop worrying about what the outside world believes because they're all doolally in the first place. That's the kind of response that I think is coming across here. Let me read you a comment that I had. I'll link to the whole discussion below. It was on a post called Everyday Sexism 2, but I got a comment back late on in that. Let me read you it. We roll our eyes when 101 types turn up with genuine questions, but I tend to give them the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps they are really serious about learning. Perhaps they really want to learn. Well, apart from the arrogance that anybody who turns up with a different opinion, it can't be that they've considered the issue and actually have read the evidence in a different way. No, they must be turning up because they want to learn. Which, let me give you a little aside here and tell you about the Atheism Plus forum, because this is something, if you browse the Atheism Plus forum, you will see that there is an education forum. All sounds well and good, doesn't it? An education forum, quite benign. Until you read some of the other forums and you see what the education forum is around. It's kind of slightly Big Brother Ministry of Information kind of thing. If you post in one of the other forums and you express an opinion that is different to the consensus there, you're merely directed back to the education forum, presumably to banished to the education forum until you've been sufficiently educated in what is the right way of thinking. And then once there's nothing left to debate anymore because you already agree with everybody else on the forum, then you can start participating in the rest of the forum. It's quite bizarre, but it links into this idea that if you disagree with them, then either you're a troll or you've come to learn. You've come for them to teach you where you're going wrong. But I'm interested, it was the roll the eyes bit. So this is what I put to him, a clue to the clueless. Don't roll your eyes when people turn up who think differently to you. The idea of bloody movement is to get your ideas across to people, and that means people who don't presently agree with you. Not talk endlessly amongst yourselves, patting each other on the back for how much you agree on. That seems to be a fundamental flaw with this Atheism Plus. Okay, so I don't think there's any need to drag that on anymore. If these people want to have a movement, that's fine. But one of the things about having a movement, I know it's a drag, but it means that you have to interact with the outside world and with people who don't agree with you. One thing that I have to say in all of this, and I never thought I'd have to say this, you know, when I've engaged with people, theists, who are the more rational theists amongst their numbers, I've always held a little bit of a smug position, because however clever their arguments have been, however well reasoned they've been, I've always known that they've got a load of total idiots in the same corner. They've still got the Ken Hams and the Kent Hovins, and so it doesn't matter how much how sophisticated they appear to be, there's still the dirty little secret of these other individuals. I've always felt a certain sort of, perhaps this is my white male middle class cisgender blah blah blah, all the other things, privilege kicking in here, but I've always felt a slight superiority on those grounds. If one thing this has done, it's given me a real fucking kick in the teeth, because no longer do I think like that anymore. No longer do I look across at the theists and think, all the idiots, all the tinfoil hatted bastards. In fact, here's a picture on the tinfoil. This isn't my picture. Just have a look at this one, just for a little interlude and a bit of a laugh. If you've made this picture, please let me know, and I'll credit you for it. So we've got our tin-foiled hat idiots just the same as everybody else, and in many ways ours are worse than the religious ones, because I'll tell you one thing, at least the religious ones go out of their way. They may quote mine when they provide you with a reply. They may twist and they may turn like a twisty-turny thing, but at least they give you an answer. At least they attempt to address your points, even if they've twisted your points around to do it. A lot of these people don't even think they have to address your points at all. They just dismiss you on grounds of privilege, on grounds that you simply need to go back to the education forum and get yourself educated before you can take part in the discussion. Let me just give you a little bit of a theory of mine, and that is, wherever you are, whether you're at the top of the food chain or the very bottom, there are people in every way and every group and every class that you can think of to hold people together. Every category you can come up with, there are people that want to be victims. There's the very, 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 very rich person who moans about how difficult it is having all this money, how it's nowhere near as good as you think it would do. And we kind of despise that a little bit, don't we? We say, here's somebody who has got some real privileges in life, and all they're doing is moaning, all they're doing is picking out all the little bits where they are a victim. Well, let me tell you, it's not just people who have things who love to play the victim card. In every group there are people that love to play the victim card. And you know what I see here on the Atheism Plus forum? I see a little enclave for people who love to play the victim card. So with that, let me give you a link to the most awesome pissing contest. I've already tweeted this, but for everybody who hasn't seen it, the most awesome pissing contest in the history of the internet. This is a pissing contest, Atheism Plus style, where they're falling over one another. Some of these lists must have took hours and hours and hours to not just to write, but to think up. I couldn't come up with some of this stuff. You've got to seriously have spent probably years festering and fermenting in your own juices, trying to think up every possible way in which society has done you down to come up with some of these lists. You've got to take your hat off to some of these lists. Have a look at this link. I'll put it down below. That's it. That's pretty much all I want to say. Have a look at the list, and perhaps you'll end up with a bit more of a smile on your face after you've done so. That's all I've got to say. Bye for now.